Hello, everyone. Welcome. We apologize for the delay, that we had some technical issues on our end, but we're glad to have them resolved. But welcome to How to Upgrade from an Older Version of BarTender. Our session today will be a 30-minute discussion, so we'll ask you to keep all of your questions inside the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. But I think we're good to get started. So Stacy, next slide, please. Hello, my name is Ryan Rodriguez. I'm a product marketing manager here at Siegel Scientific, and I'll be leading today's session with my colleague, Stephen Watkins, who is one of our top sales engineers. Next slide. We have a pretty full agenda today. We will walk through some recent updates to the BarTender lifecycle, followed by a review of the latest version of BarTender, which is BarTender 2022. And from there, we'll provide a quick demo of how you can easily get started with your update and then end with our Q&A roundtable discussion. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So you may be asking, what is the BarTender lifecycle? Well, essentially, when we introduce a new version of BarTender, we guarantee a minimum of 6 years of support starting from the release date of that version. So for example, BarTender 2022 was released in April of 22, so its end of support will be in April of 2028. This chart follows all of the current supported versions of BarTender, except for the last one there you see in the green bubble at the bottom. So BarTender 2016 actually reached end of support back in April of this year, so that version is no longer supported. And if you're running on 2016 or an earlier version, you are no longer supported, which means that you will no longer have access to technical support. You won't be receiving any new security updates, regardless of the severity of those risks, and you will not be able to add any additional printers unless you have renewed your maintenance agreement. So if you're on an unsupported version, we highly recommend you update to the latest version, which is BarTender 2022. So let's take a moment to look at what's been added since 2016. So BarTender 2022 provides unmatched security for your powerful future-proof labeling. The latest version ensures that you have business continuity and compliance across your labeling with advanced licensing server redundancy for disaster recovery and support for the latest barcode and labeling standards, including GS1, RFID, and more. You can also safeguard the integrity of your labeling with centralized label workflow control. The new Visual Workflow Designer accelerates your design, production, and QA processes for faster deployment and allows you to track your progress, the progress of your label files from start to finish. We've also introduced the integration between Librarian and Print Portal or Print Station to help you centralize and manage your label template files. And speaking of Print Portal, BarTender 2022 completely revamps the application with modern UI and faster performance. The refreshed Print Portal, which you can see there in the bottom right of the slide here, provides more detailed user permission and expanded remote printing access for your teams, partners, and external suppliers. BarTender 2022 also provides expanded connectivity and integrations, including the new BarTender REST API, which allows you to connect to any business system, including ERPs, WMSs, and more. We've also expanded support for 20+ databases, including Excel, Line, and Google Sheets, as well as a new database connector for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central and Supply Chain Management. And finally, BarTender 2022 gives you the ability to print from anywhere, anytime, on any device with the new BarTender mobile app. Next slide. And so I know it can be a little overwhelming of how you should get started with your updates. So we've laid out a few options here to help you figure out what might be the best place to get started. So the first option is to get a new BarTender license. This is great for any instance that will require more than 6 months to migrate or has multiple sites that are all using unique templates. For most of you, however, I believe that the best option would probably be to provisionally activate BarTender 2022. It's the easiest way to update your software, especially if you have a simple setup. But if you want to look at, BarTender 2022 and test out the features, we definitely recommend just downloading a BarTender 2022 free trial. And if you're not really sure still where you want to get started, or if you don't really want to have to worry about managing the whole update yourself, you can definitely get in touch with our BarTender professional services team. But since we believe that provisional activation may be the best option for you all, I'm going to pass the baton over to Stephen, who will walk us through how to get started with provisional activation.
All right, thank you so much, Ryan. And I'll go ahead and take control here. All right. All right. Again, thanks, Ryan. Something we've always held with pride as a company here at Seagull Scientific is our deep-rooted connection with our partners and customers. Now, this connection and our willingness to listen to the ideas and needs of our users and then integrating these ideas into our software has been integral in keeping Seagull Scientific as a global leader in labeling. Now, one such example of our user-friendly development ethos was the creation of the provisional activation. Now, when we developed and released BarTender 2019, we changed our licensing at a core level. As you'll see in the slides, we moved from the Seagull licensing server, which is affectionately known as SLS in BarTender 2016 and earlier, to the BarTender licensing service, or BLS, that was implemented on BarTender 2019 and later. Now, there are multiple new features you'll love, and we can't wait for you to explore them. But one necessary change when all this happened was that there's no inherent backwards compatibility between BarTender 2016 and earlier versions, and that being 10.x, 9.x, and etc., to BarTender 2019 versions and later. Now, the provisional activation is what will allow you to migrate from 2016 and earlier instances to the newer instances that were developed after 2019 with no interruption to your current operations at all. Now, we're going to go over the basic processes as outlined on the right side of the screen that we have here. So, first and foremost, we're going to have, as you can see, we've got two integrations running through Seagull licensing server, which would be, again, through 2016 and earlier, be it your 10.x, your 9.x, 8, 7, what have you. Now, on a new PC, you're going to want to install. Thank you. We're going to want to install the BarTender licensing server on a brand new installation of this. Now, we're going to note this out. The old SLS is going to still be up and running, and all the processes are going to continue to run on the old system. There will be no interruption at that point. So, on another new PC, we're going to install the BarTender 2022 for test and evaluation. Now, what you're going to do with test and evaluation is pretty much what you're looking to do going forward in regards to how you were working previously with your 2016 and earlier versions, getting it set up the way you want to emulate this in the newer environment. So now, after that test and evaluation has been completed, and you got the connection going pointed from the BarTender test and evaluation over to the BarTender 2022, where you have the licensing server, you're going to migrate one of the versions or one of the integrations from the SLS over to the BLS integration itself. Now, again, the old SLS is going to still be up and running, and there will be no non-transition processes that are going to end in the meantime. And the two systems are going to run in parallel, and you're going to roll out the software updates on the new version as needed. Now, once this installation is up and we've proven that that's going to work in the way that you want to have that, now we'll move the secondary integration over as well, repeating the process of the first. And then after we see that the second is also going to work properly, at that point, we shut down the Seagull licensing server, and you're now fully moved over from the 2016 and earlier version over to BarTender 2022. Now, this point shows where we're going to go into our BarTender administration console, where we would set this up for you and how you would set it up going forward, and starting off with provisional activation. So we're going to have, sorry, go back a slide. There we go. So we're going to open the administration console. We're going to select licensing in the left-hand menu. And then we're going to select activate, and then activate a new license. Then second step here, we're going to activate the license. Obviously, we're going to go on and put in the PKC, and it'll be the same PKC that is active on a different license of the server. Next slide, please. All right, and then we're going to launch provisional activation. And this is where we're going to check the checkbox for the activate provisionally. That is very important. Next, we're going to select licensing server, and we're going to select and specify the license server we want to go to. Now, it cannot be on the same server as the current license. Again, this needs to be set up on a different instance, not the one that you have currently. Every instance of BarTender needs to have one instance of BarTender on there. You're going to ensure you have the stable internet connection when you're doing this. And finally, you're going to register your software. You're going to choose whether to share the license with other network computers or not, and then you're going to register to your BarTender software itself. And with that, that's the high level of how you would install a provisional licensing and the process of moving over from the 2016 earlier versions over to the 2019 and later versions. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it back to Ryan.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Stephen. So I think we're good to move to the next slide. Now, from our previous webinar, we've received a variety of different questions regarding how the update process works. And so we're going to spend a few minutes just kind of walking through our more frequently asked questions. We'll start here with the first one, which is, will my version of BarTender still operate even though it is no longer supported? Stephen?
Yep, and the answer is yes, it will. Now this is a very common concern and question that we end up running into. So the perpetual license that you have is not going to change. It's still valid. You're just no longer going to have support from Seagull Scientific on unsupported versions. So if there are any issues that arise for some reason on that early version that's no longer supported, that's where you're going to run into issues and possible concerns with an unsupported version, which is why we always recommend upgrading to BarTender 2022 as soon as you can.
Yes, and this next one, what is the cost of upgrading to BarTender 2022? So it actually doesn't cost you anything to actually, commence the update. All that you would need is an active license with an active maintenance and support agreement, and that will assure you that you can update at any time without having to pay anything for it. This next one of how do I need a new license or activation key to upgrade from 2016 or an earlier version to 2022? And actually, no, you can keep your existing PKC. It's going to work. You don't have to worry about having to manage multiple different licenses. You can continue on with the same product key code that you have been working with since then. Are there any specific requirements to updating to BarTender 2022? Yes, and so for desktop, that you would need either Windows 10 or Windows 11, or for your server, you'll need Server 2022, 2019, or 2016 would all work.
The one other addendum to that is that our versions have now moved from 32-bit up to 64-bit. Now, it's not going to have any issues or impact on folks with the installation of itself, but sometimes some of the support programs, that might be something you need to double check as you're going through with the upgrade.
No, thank you, Stephen. And then for this next one, can BarTender 2022 be installed on top of BarTender 2016? Do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. The answer is yes, you can, but you can only have one version of BarTender on any given PC. So that means that any user files that any user files you have is going to be fine. But 2016, when you do the update, it's going to be removed in 2022. It's going to be the new installed version on your PC. You will not have 2016 and 2022 running concurrently on there. Now, if for some reason you needed 2016 back, you would have to go through and manually install BarTender 2016 on top of BarTender 2022, and you would be able to do so, but that would be the process to do it.
Yes, and then will my existing printers work with BarTender 2022 after upgrading? And so the easy answer for this is yes, but they just need to be within the eight, actually that's now changed as of this morning to nearly 9,000 printers that we support for optimized high performance printing. And so as long as it's within our large library of printer drivers, you should have no issue with having to worry if your existing printers will continue to work on BarTender. One of the questions that we also receive quite a bit too is if you want to move forward with provisional activation, how long is that good for? And so Stephen, do you want to shed some light on just kind of like what the provisional activation like duration kind of lasts for?
It is 30 days for professional and it is 180 days for enterprise.
Great. Yes. So let's move. I think we're good to move on, Stacey. I think we just have received one question, which is the SQL Server database.
Yes, that question. What about SQL Server database? When we migrate BarTender 2016 to BarTender 2022, the process automatically changes, then the database structure. So BarTender 2016 cannot access it again. So we can't test bartender 2022 at the same time using bartender 2016.
Let me look for what was the question. Okay, let me go to the chat here. One moment.
Yeah, so they're just kind of Stephen, they're just kind of more I guess under inquiring more about just the SQL Server database.
When we migrate, I will research that, and again, I will send that in. I will send that information back out.
Perfect.
And then we have another question here. Is there a way to do a minimal install on workstations? They only need to be able to run or run or print the labels.
No, the installation is the installation of BarTender. Now, depending on who does what, you can have certain people have when you develop or when you actually create accounts to do certain things on that, but the installation is usually pretty standard.
And we have time for a couple more questions, but if there are not any, we can move on.
All right. I think we're next slide, please, Stacy. I think we're good to move forward.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yes. And so just to recap, we really want to, at the end of the day, we really want to make sure that you continue to operate efficiently without any issues. And so the best way to get started with your bartender software update is to contact your Siegel sales rep or reseller. And from there, you essentially have three options, which are to either renew your maintenance and support agreement, get a new bartender license, or you can request a upgrade assessment from the bartender professional services team. We want to thank you all again for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.